By back then, I mean the very early 90s. You know, around 90, 91, the music was just really exciting. It was taking a new turn. We were getting new styles of music that were being created. The community was just amazing. I tell people that, you know, we were a lot bigger and a lot stronger than people remember. Being able to throw these type of parties independently with our own networks of communications, our own networks of promoting, and our own networks of everything. We built it all ourselves. Nobody showed us what to do. You would have every type of subculture you could name, from punks and gothics, skaters, hip-hoppers.
All these cool little raver kids, didn't matter if you're black, white, gay, straight, rich, poor, like everyone just came and partied together, and it was inspiring.
And that's what the beauty of a rave was. Everybody would come together. So people that didn't hang out together during the week or most weekends might find themselves right next to each other dancing on the same dance floor at a big rave. And that's what we were able to accomplish.
People needed to connect, and that was a human connection that I myself needed. I needed to connect with everyone in the crowd when I was on the dance floor. I needed to connect with the DJs when they're on stage. And it was an amazing journey, because all of a sudden you had like hundreds and hundreds of people from all these other cities, from Dallas, from Houston, from New Orleans, coming down from Kansas City, St. Louis, Albuquerque, and they were coming to Oklahoma City, and they were going up to their cities, and we're partying with them, and we had these massive sound systems that we would just kind of like drive back and forth between these cities, going renegade from warehouse to warehouse.
I say that, you know, this culture is part of the past, and that when I say that it can't happen again, part of the reason is because of how underground our scene really was. You're talking one-off parties in underground locations and warehouses, all-night events, no alcohol, unlicensed. But yeah, it was totally underground. The process would be like, I'd find a venue that would be able to be rented. So that was the first thing you had to do. You had to have a spot to throw a party. So you're talking about a place that's not typically used for a party. We always broke fire code. I mean, we didn't have a concept of like occupancy limits for a venue or awareness of how that worked, or even caring about that whatsoever. You know, later on, we became more aware, and you know, as police crackdowns happened, there are many parties that got shut down by the fire marshal. You know, if you've got a spot that's legally permitted for 300 and you've got 700 people in there, bam, I mean, the police show up, party's over. Early 90s, we had the benefit of flying under the radar, kinda. You know, police would sometimes show up to our events, and they would just tell us to turn it down. They got a noise complaint from the neighbors. Can you just turn it down? No problem. They wouldn't come in. Be like, all right, cool, no problem. We'll turn it down. You know, cops would leave. We'd wait about 15 minutes and turn it back up.
But then somewhere around, I would say like 98, 99, the anti-rave laws really hit.
I would be passing new ordinances relating to stiff criminal penalties for anyone who held a rave. The promoter, the guy who owned the building. I would put the son of a gun in jail.
And so these warehouse parties that we were throwing, I mean, we were, you know, yeah, you know, we brag about having these big sound systems and big lighting systems, but we didn't exactly own the warehouses or the buildings we were in.
As the 90s progressed, the police intervention got worse and worse and worse. And a lot of it was blamed on the hype, the media, people getting an idea that raves were, you know, bad. The police, not knowing any better, they just believed that. So they came to look at raves as places that they needed to go shut down.
That's the scum who should be put in jail. The guy opens up the warehouse, turns off the water, and sells it for $5 or $10 a bottle because it's required. What do we do about that? Does it make sense?
So we went a little renegade for a while. The scene as a whole, I mean, there was a lot of things that we did to legitimize ourselves, but by that time, by the late 90s, there's no way of keeping the anti-rave laws from shutting us down. And so a lot of DJs at that time hung up their headphones. A lot of the scene and a lot of the production and a lot of that energy and that vibe really had to change hands. Things had to move. things had to be different. Because there's no way that that scene could continue surviving the way it had, because the world had changed by then. And so that kind of brings us to like the early 2000s. And my crazy homeboy from Tulsa, Brian Peace. He decided to do this crazy indie hipster rock thing that was kind of electronic. He called it Robotic.
My name is Brian Peace. I was one of the co-creators of Robotic Wednesdays.
I remember it being at Sidecar, and then it went to Electro Lounge, which was like not much bigger, but it was like 100 capacity type of room. And it was kind of like the cool hipster bar that everybody went to. But the odd thing about it, it was in the middle of a Best Buy parking lot inside an office building at the bottom floor, which is really crazy as well because it was super small, super chill. And I remember like walking in there, and it was kind of always chill. It was just like a normal bar scene for the first like hour, from the time it opened like 9 p.m. to about 10:30, 11. But for some reason, like right at like 11 o'clock, I remember it just bumping, and like the people just started dancing, and people weren't in their own little space, and everybody just went to the dance floor, just got crazy. And by the end of the night, it was so wild because it just ended up being like a sweaty mess and felt like it was like the best house party of your life with all your best friends.
So Robotic started in this little 50 capacity room, and it was kind of a funny little thing, because local DJs would just kind of come up, and we weren't really mixing. We were kind of mixing, but we're just playing music for ourselves and our friends.
Hey, if I don't see you every fucking Wednesday, I'm gonna kill you.
So yeah, we basically just started it because we had nothing to do and nowhere to play.
It inspired me because I was like, man, I like enjoyed dance music, but I was still like a rock and roll kid, and I didn't really know what I liked about dance music. I just knew that I was having a lot of fun, and I really liked what they were doing, what they were spinning, because they were taking a lot of like indie pop songs and stuff and playing remixes of them, and like we just had a great time.
And it quickly went from this little 50 cap room that was always packed out to 150 cap room that 300 kids were trying to get into.
This guy James, who approached us, and was like, "Hey, my parents told me I could throw a party at a restaurant because they're converting it to like a venue at the time."
They invited me to come DJ every once in a while, and at this time they were wanting me to get more involved, and said, "Hey, we're gonna move Robotic over to camps and to a little bigger space where we can have more people. Do you want to come join me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I remember sitting in a few meetings, and we were sitting there kind of talking this out with James and trying to figure out what we were going to do. And basically the plan was like, hey, let's move it over to a bigger space. We can get more people in there, and we can also make it 18 and up. Because at the time, like there literally was no 18 and up dance clubs or dance events.
And we were using that to kind of like loop a larger group of people that had never really understood or knew that electronic music existed in Oklahoma. And they're being drawn to this crazy thing called Robotic every Wednesday, randomly. That started, in my opinion, the next great era of Oklahoma City's electronic dance music scene. Robotic, and Robotic lasted for 10 years.
I mean, I think it was the perfect time to end Robotic when it was. 10 years is a good run. A lot of us running the party, started getting kids, getting older, getting married. Some of us got burnt out. I mean, it was sad when we ended, but I mean, you can't keep going forever. So Waylon, Subsonics, came around like 2015.
Waylon Clark, owner of Subsonics, the Rare Diamond Events, started doing electronic events about 5 years ago in Oklahoma City. Started out in a small little venue, 10th and MacArthur. So where we really took off and grew was out of the Oklahoma City Farmers Market. We're still there. We still do monthly or sometimes 2 to 3 events a month in that building. We had a little street team. started out with like 15, 20 people who just kind of believed in what we were doing and wanted to focus on locals and up and coming underground artists that were coming through the area. So we did that for about 6 months, and the room was just so big, and I felt like there was a more demand for the way things were trending in electronic, for more of a concert style event rather than the club events and things that were happening around here. So we took a hold of it more as a concert, an event, and we kind of looked at bigger markets, Dallas and things, like what they were doing. Just grown from events with 50 to 100 people. Now we're doing here locally at the Criterion's a 3,400 capacity venue, and several other venues across the state, just still doing that today.
The music world, much like the rest of the world, is feeling the impact of COVID-19 with a growing list of concert cancellations.